Recently, someone asked me, what made me decide to start podcasting? And in answering that question, I had pretty much a startling revelation, I would say. But my response to the question prompted me to do an episode that just might encourage someone else to get into podcasting as well. So, growing up, I've never been able to express how I felt about things. I've never really had a voice, the stage, or opportunity to talk about things that matter to me. I've pretty much been quiet and mute. I was called it select mutism because I did talk, but I talked very little. I had very little to say because I was never encouraged to speak. It almost felt like in my childhood and the adolescence that no one really cared about what it was I had to say. And then as I got older, I noticed the trend in my life. That trend was that everybody would always tell me how much of a good listener I am. Whether I'm talking in person or over the phone or video chat, I'm always told that I'm such a good and active, engaging listener. But I had to realize, hey, I like to talk too. I have things that I want to say. I have words that want to come from my mouth. I have opinions, I have thoughts, I have feedback. I'm very valuable. And I had to finally realize that. Looking back over my life, most of my friendships have been based around me listening to my friends, giving them advice. And when I say listening to them, I mean actively listening to them. I'm talking asking follow-up questions, prompting critical thinking, and trying to help people figure out their problems. I've always been a type of person that gets 100% into everybody else. And I've never really had anybody to get into me like that. I've never really had the voice. No one ever cared about what I had to say. Now, I have 3 children coming up in my footsteps. I do not want them to follow along that same path. I want my children to realize they have voices. Use them. Speak your mind. Advocate for yourself. Voice your opinion. And the only way that I feel at this point that I can get that message out to my kids is to show them better than telling them. So this podcast is more than just a platform for me to just talk. This platform is for me to exert and embrace my power. Yes, it's cool to be a good listener, a good active listener who engages in other people's conversation. But I can't tell you how many times I've been talking to someone and the whole conversation, the other person is dominating the conversation. I can barely get a word in edgewise. I mean, I'll be literally sitting or standing there waiting for my turn to speak. And then if ever I get that chance to speak, I'm always interrupted or cut off because I guess what the other person has to say is more important and interesting than whatever it is I have to say. I don't know. But the trend in my life has been that I have always been listening, and told that I'm such a good listener. Well, guess what, world? I got some shit I want to say too. Sometimes I ask myself, I have a speech impairment. Many people don't know it, and it's an undiagnosed speech impairment, but I know I have a speech impairment. And I think that impairment I think that impairment is rooted in the fact that I have not been exercising my tongue. All these years, here I am, I'm 42 years old, and I have not been exercising my tongue. And so with that, my tongue is heavy. And when I try to speak and talk, voice my opinion, and assert myself, I have a hard time articulating my words because all throughout my life, my tongue has been heavy. I have been silent. I have not been able to speak as much as I should have been able to speak. People have not been interested in what it is I've had to say. But I tell you now, today, I realize that I have a voice, and I'm going to use that voice for the greater good, to show my children and other people that I will not remain silent. I have been silent enough. I have been humble enough. I'm going to work on my speech by speaking more. I'm going to encourage my kids to work on their speech because I noticed the same thing with my kids. You know, things are generational. And generationally speaking, I believe that I instilled some of the silence in my kids that was instilled in me. And so then my kids have not been exercising their tongues either. I just recently started to embrace the fact that my kids can talk without feeling like they're talking back or disrespecting me. I've just recently started accepting the fact that my kids are their own people, their own individuals. They see things differently. They view the world differently. And who am I to tell them that they cannot express that? Which brings me to an upcoming episode that I am going to post soon. The episode is titled, Children Should Be Seen and Not Heard. Because that is such a false statement, it needs to be addressed. Children should be seen and heard. And we're going to flip the script on the fact that people believe that children should be seen and not heard. Because all my life, I was seen, I wasn't heard. And actually, I feel like I wasn't seen or heard. And I can look at myself now and analyze myself and critique where I am today. And I can honestly say that my lack of self-confidence, my low level of motivation at times, and the fact that I do not assert myself like I should comes from the fact that over time, people have been walking around here planting seeds that children should be seen and not heard. Now here we are. The result is a person who doesn't really speak when they have things to say. A person who can change the world. A person who can help people elevate their mindset. Influence people for the right reason. Change the world around. Flip the script. But this person is not as confident as they should be because they have not been exercising their tongue. That person is me. If that person is you, I encourage you today to start exercising your tongue. Start using your voice. Your tongue should not be heavy. Your voice should not be low. You should speak up when you need to speak up. Yes, people are going to hate you for it. They're going to despise you for it because all this time you have been quiet. You haven't said anything. You have been a good listener, an active listener, and engaging. And now you want to talk, and they're not going to want to let you talk. They're going to want you to continue listening to them. But it's time for you to flip the script, and it's time for you to go from only listening to talking sometimes. Show your voice out. You have a voice. Show it off. Use it. Make other people hear it. And even if that means that you have to be the one to cut people off in the midst of a conversation, because if you don't cut people off, you won't get a word in edgewise, then at this point, it's time to start cutting people off. Hey, I have something to say too. You've been talking for 3 minutes now, and I haven't had a word to say, a chance to say anything. Can I say something now? Because a lot of times people don't even realize what they're doing. People don't realize that they're dominating the conversation when the conversation is supposed to be a give and take. It's not supposed to be one person talking and one person listening. It goes both ways on a conversation. Being a good conversationalist includes being able to listen and being able to talk. Not just talk while somebody else just listens, and you have no consideration on what this other person may have to say. So, I'm going to close this episode by saying, for all my silent listeners who barely talk, who barely raise their voice, I want to challenge you today to exercise your tongue and start speaking up more. If you got to begin by starting a podcast and just talk with a monologue where no one can interrupt you for now until you build the strength in your tongue to be able to have a conversation with someone and you're confident enough to say, okay, it's time for me to speak. You've been speaking for long enough. Practice makes perfect. And I want you all to be encouraged today. Happy Easter. Happy Sunday. And until next time, take care.